Our planet is a tapestry of diverse nations and cultures, each with its own unique identity and aspirations. International law binds us in the pursuit of a just and peaceful world. It serves as a framework for cooperation and coexistence, governing relations between states, from diplomacy and trade to environmental protection, relying on the consent and cooperation of states, fostering a world where disputes are settled peacefully. In our journey across the globe, we encounter a profound truth. Every individual, regardless of their background, possesses inherent dignity and worth. This fundamental principle underpins the concept of human rights. They are the basic rights and freedoms that all humans are entitled to simply by virtue of being human. Human rights are universal. They apply to everyone, everywhere, irrespective of their race, sex, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other status. They are also inalienable. No one can legitimately deprive another person of these rights. They are not granted by any state or authority. They are inherent to our existence. These rights encompass a wide range of freedoms and entitlements. They include the right to life, liberty, and security of person, the right to freedom from torture and cruel treatment, the right to freedom of expression, assembly, and religion, the right to education, work, and an adequate standard of living. Human rights are essential for a just and equitable society. They protect individuals from abuse and exploitation. They empower them to live with dignity and to participate fully in society. For centuries, the conduct of states was largely unregulated. The principle of state sovereignty reigned supreme, leaving individuals vulnerable to the whims of their rulers. The horrors of World War II, however, served as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the urgent need for a more just and humane world order. It was against this backdrop that the international community embarked on an ambitious endeavor to enshrine the fundamental rights of all humans in international law. This marked a paradigm shift in international relations. No longer would states be free to treat their citizens as they pleased. They would now be bound by international legal obligations to respect, protect, and fulfill the human rights of all individuals within their jurisdiction. This fusion of international law and human rights has led to the development of a robust body of international human rights law. This branch of law sets out the legal obligations of states to protect and promote human rights. It provides a framework for holding states accountable for human rights violations. The journey to enshrine human rights in international law has been a long and arduous one. Early efforts, while limited in scope, laid the groundwork for the more comprehensive human rights framework we have today. One of the earliest examples of international human rights law is the Geneva Conventions. Adopted in 1864, these treaties sought to mitigate the horrors of war by establishing rules for the humane treatment of wounded soldiers, prisoners of war, and civilians during armed conflict. The creation of the League of Nations after World War I marked another important step. While ultimately unsuccessful in preventing another global conflict, the League did pioneer efforts to address issues such as labor rights, the trafficking of women and children, and the treatment of minorities. These early initiatives, though imperfect, demonstrated a growing recognition of the need for international cooperation to protect the rights and dignity of all people. They paved the way for the transformative changes that would follow World War II. Section 5. The Universal Declaration, a beacon of hope for humanity. In the aftermath of World War II, the international community came together with a renewed determination to build a better future. The atrocities committed during the war, including the Holocaust, served as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred and intolerance. It was against this backdrop that the United Nations was founded in 1945 with a mission to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. One of the UN's most significant achievements was the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. This landmark document proclaimed, for the first time, a comprehensive set of human rights that all states were expected to uphold. The UDHR was a triumph of international cooperation. It represented a shared commitment to building a world where all individuals are treated with dignity and respect. The Declaration has since become a cornerstone of international law and a source of inspiration for human rights defenders around the world. Section 6. Beyond declarations, treaties and conventions for a more just world. While the Universal Declaration of Human Rights provided a powerful articulation of human rights principles, it was not a legally binding treaty. To give these rights legal teeth, the international community embarked on a process of codifying them into treaties and conventions. Over the decades that followed, a plethora of international human rights treaties were adopted, addressing specific areas of concern. These included treaties on the elimination of racial discrimination, the elimination of discrimination against women, the rights of the child, the prevention of torture, and the protection of migrant workers, among others. These treaties, once ratified by states, create legally binding obligations. States parties are required to incorporate the provisions of these treaties into their domestic law and to take concrete steps to implement them. Section 7. Enforcing the rules. Mechanisms for upholding human rights. Enshrining human rights in international law is an essential step, but it is not enough. To be effective, these rights must be accompanied by robust mechanisms for monitoring compliance and holding states accountable for violations. The UN has established a number of mechanisms to promote and protect human rights. These include the Human Rights Council, a forum for discussing human rights issues and addressing violations, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which provides technical assistance and support to states in implementing human rights standards, and a system of independent human rights experts who monitor and report on the human rights situation in specific countries or on thematic issues. In addition to these UN mechanisms, many regional organizations such as the Council of Europe and the African Union have established their own human rights courts and commissions. These bodies play a crucial role in holding states accountable for human rights violations and providing redress to victims. Section 8. A world transformed. The profound impact of international human rights law. The development of international human rights law has had a profound impact on the world. It has led to significant improvements in the lives of millions of people. The recognition of human rights in international law has helped to shift norms and values, fostering a greater awareness of the inherent dignity and worth of all individuals. This has contributed to the abolition of slavery and the death penalty in many countries, the advancement of women's rights, the protection of the rights of children, and the promotion of the rights of persons with disabilities. International human rights law has also provided a framework for addressing global challenges such as poverty, climate change, and discrimination. It has empowered civil society organizations to hold their governments accountable for human rights violations and to advocate for change. Section 9. Challenges on the horizon, navigating the complexities of the 21st century. While international human rights law has made remarkable strides, much work remains to be done. The 21st century presents a host of complex challenges that threaten to undermine human rights progress. Globalization, while creating opportunities for economic growth, has also led to increased inequality and exploitation. Climate change poses an existential threat to humanity, with the poorest and most vulnerable communities disproportionately affected. Advances in technology, while offering immense potential, have also raised concerns about privacy, freedom of expression, and the potential for discrimination and surveillance. In addition to these emerging challenges, the international community continues to grapple with ongoing human rights crises, including armed conflicts, forced displacement, and persecution based on religion, ethnicity, and other grounds. The rise of nationalism and populism in many parts of the world poses a further threat, as it often fuels intolerance, discrimination, and xenophobia. Section 10. A shared responsibility securing human rights for future generations. Protecting and promoting human rights is not just the responsibility of states and international organizations. It is a shared responsibility that requires the active participation of all members of society. As individuals, we have a moral obligation to stand up for human rights and to challenge injustice wherever we see it. We can support human rights organizations, educate ourselves and others about human rights issues, and hold our leaders accountable for upholding human rights standards. The journey towards a more just and equitable world is ongoing. It requires constant vigilance and a steadfast commitment to the principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. By working together, we can create a world where all individuals can live with dignity, freedom, and equality.